I don't even know where to start when everything in your life falls apart at once. Maybe it's been brewing under the surface for years, and I just chose not to see it. But for the sake of this rant or confession, or whatever the hell you want to call it, let's rewind to our 5th anniversary. 5 years of marriage to Lena, and I honestly thought I was doing everything right. Sure, I'd been swamped with work. I mean, I'm a manager in IT, for crying out loud. It's not like I can clock out at 5 p.m. and pretend the world doesn't exist. I've got deadlines, clients hounding me, and a boss who thinks I'm some kind of machine that doesn't need to sleep. So yeah, maybe I was a little distracted when I tried to put something nice together for our anniversary. But I still put in the effort, alright? I arranged a nice dinner, candles everywhere, even picked up some jewelry I knew she'd love. But the moment I handed her the gift, I saw that look. That goddamn look like I just ruined her entire evening. She barely even bothered to unwrap it before tossing it aside like it was some kind of trash. You just don't get it, Ryan? She snapped, that patronizing tone creeping into her voice. The one I knew all too well. It's not about the gifts. It's about you actually being here with me for once. And just like that, we were off. Another argument. I tried to explain, tried to make her understand that I was doing everything I could to make our marriage work. But she didn't want to listen. She just kept going on about how I was married to my job, and how she felt like nothing more than a roommate. I tried keeping my composure, but it all came pouring out. How she never appreciated anything I did. How she nitpicked everything. By the end, we were practically yelling at each other. Hannah, our so-called friend who was hosting the party, was probably regretting ever inviting us. That night ended with Lena storming out, leaving me there with half-eaten cake and a room full of guests who were all too uncomfortable to look at me. I don't know if I realized it then, but that was the first crack in our marriage. A couple of weeks later, I had to leave for one of those last-minute business trips that always seem to pop up at the worst times. I had no choice but to pack my bags and go. Meanwhile, Lena was back home, probably complaining to her little sister Aiden about what an asshole I was. Or maybe not, because it turns out she found a better shoulder to cry on. My best friend, Tyler. Now, Tyler, God, where do I even start? We've been best friends since college, and I never in a million years thought he'd do something like this. But while I was busting my ass to keep our life together, Lena was inviting him over for these friendly visits. You know, wine, board games, just a couple of buddies hanging out while her husband was out of town. Turns out it was a hell of a lot more than just games. I wasn't there, but Lena told me enough to fill in the blanks. She was feeling lonely, and Tyler was there to comfort her. Just writing that out makes my blood boil. They probably started off talking about how tough it was to be with someone like me, and then one thing led to another. I can picture it now. The two of them on our damn couch, her playing the poor, sad victim while she gave him those big, doe-eyed looks. And Tyler, that smooth-talking prick, holding her hand and telling her she deserves better. Then, after a few glasses of wine, they were probably making out, clothes coming off, screwing right there where we used to watch movies together. Meanwhile, I was holed up in some crappy hotel room, trying to fix a project that was falling apart, completely oblivious to what was going on back at home. The worst part? I was actually concerned about Lena. I kept thinking, God, I hope she's okay. I hope she's not too lonely. Well, turns out she was busy finding comfort in my best friend's arms. I found out later that it wasn't just a one-off thing. Oh no, they kept doing it, and I was too stupid to notice. I remember coming back from that trip, and Lena was all smiles, acting like she'd missed me. She even cooked me dinner. What I didn't know was that she was probably just relieved she got away with it. But I started noticing things, like how she'd leave the house late at night, claiming she was meeting her sister or needed to drive to clear her head. She'd come back with this weird look in her eyes, like she was guilty of something but trying to hide it. And Tyler? That asshole would still come around, acting like nothing was wrong, drinking beer with me, laughing it up, while he was sleeping with my wife behind my back. Around that time, work was starting to go downhill, too. My project was behind schedule, my boss was on my case, and I couldn't focus for shit. I kept finding myself wondering what Lena was really up to, if she was out with her sister or sneaking around with Tyler again. I couldn't shake the gut feeling that something was off, but every time I tried to bring it up, Lena would blow up at me. "You're just paranoid," she'd yell. "Maybe if you paid more attention to me instead of your damn job, you wouldn't have these crazy ideas." And I bought it. I really did. I thought maybe she's right. Maybe I am too absorbed in work. Maybe I am pushing her away. But deep down, I knew. I knew something was going on, right under my nose, and I was too blind to see it. But that was just the beginning. Things were about to get a whole lot worse. They say once you get a whiff of betrayal, it never leaves you. It lingers in your thoughts, makes you second-guess everything. That's exactly where I was after our fight. I tried to brush it off, tell myself it was just stress, but something gnawed at me. Something didn't add up, and I started noticing things that I couldn't just ignore. While I was buried at work, trying to save my project from falling apart, Lena was out there living it up, doing whatever the hell she wanted behind my back. She was meeting up with Tyler more than I even realized. And it wasn't some innocent catch-up. No, it had turned into something way worse. Something far beyond just a couple of friendly hangouts. Lena had gotten so careless with her lies that she wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. Late-night texts, sneaking out at all hours. Every time I'd ask where she was going, she'd look at me like I was the one doing something wrong. And the second I brought up Tyler, she'd get defensive, almost hostile. "We're just friends," she'd snap, her voice laced with that same annoying condescension. "Stop acting like a paranoid freak, Ryan." Meanwhile, my world at work was crumbling. My project was going down in flames, and I was stuck fighting fires all day long. That's when Chloe, this new woman at work, started stepping into the picture. She was young, full of energy, and, let's be honest, pretty damn attractive. I noticed the way she'd look at me, but at first, I ignored it. I was married, after all. But as things kept getting worse with Lena, Chloe was there, offering help with the project, staying late to work alongside me, bringing me coffee, even just listening. Something Lena hadn't done in months. One night, Chloe stayed later than usual, helping me clean up the mess that was my project. The office was dimly lit, and I couldn't shake this weird tension in the air. For a brief moment, I thought about leaning in, maybe closing the space between us. But I snapped myself out of it. What the hell was I thinking? I still loved Lena, even if she was driving me up the wall. So I buried myself in work again, pushing aside the questions about what Lena might be up to with Tyler. But the doubts kept gnawing at me. Lena's behavior was getting more suspicious by the day. Her phone screen would flip away whenever it buzzed. One time, I saw a message from B pop up on her phone, and she tried to cover it up, passing it off as some work thing. I wasn't an idiot. I knew exactly who B was. Tyler. That two-faced prick was still pretending to be my friend, all while he was screwing my wife behind my back. One evening, I came home early, hoping to surprise Lena, maybe finally fix things between us. Instead, I found her in the kitchen, dressed up and wearing that fake, nervous smile she always wore when she was caught in a lie. "Where are you going?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Just meeting Aiden for drinks," she said, not even looking at me. That was her new go-to excuse now. Meeting Aiden, or catching up with friends. I wanted to believe her, but I had seen Aiden's Instagram earlier. She was out of town with her new boyfriend. So much for that excuse. It was getting harder to stay quiet. A few nights later, Lena came home at 2 a.m., smelling like booze and something else I couldn't quite place. That was the night I couldn't take it anymore. "Where the hell were you?" I demanded, stepping in front of her as she tried to sneak past me into the bedroom. "Oh my God, Ryan, not this again," she groaned, rolling her eyes. "I told you I was with Aiden." "Bullshit," I shot back. "You weren't with her. Who was it this time? Was it Tyler?" She looked at me like I had slapped her. For a second, her face went pale, but then she quickly recovered, shooting back, "You're crazy. You need to stop these insane accusations before you ruin everything." But I saw it, that flicker of panic in her eyes. She was lying, and I could see right through it. At work, Chloe and I were spending more time together. She'd casually mention how her last relationship had been with a married guy and how she didn't mind if things got complicated. I won't lie, there were moments when I was seriously tempted. She was right there, and she was more than willing. But every time I thought about it, I'd remember my vows. Yeah, Lena was driving me nuts, but did I really want to sink to her level? But Lena wasn't letting up. She and Tyler were still meeting up. It wasn't just about sex anymore. No, they were having these deep, intimate conversations, bonding over how miserable their lives were. I found out later that Tyler even cooked her a romantic dinner at his place. Can you believe that? That piece of shit playing the role of the perfect gentleman while I was too wrapped up in my own shit to notice the knife he was driving into my back. And it wasn't just the physical stuff. Lena started talking about how she felt alive again, like she was finding herself all over again. Meanwhile, she'd come home to me, drained, emotionless, like I was just an inconvenience she had to put up with. I could feel her pulling away, but every time I tried to get her to talk about it, she shut me down, telling me I was too controlling, that I was too focused on work. Finally, I confronted her again. This time, it was after I saw a message from Tyler on her phone while she was in the shower. The message read something about last night being amazing. My hands were shaking as I read it. When she came out of the shower, wrapped in a towel, acting all innocent, I lost it. What the hell is this, Lena? I screamed, tossing her phone onto the bed. She stared at the screen, and for just a second, I saw the color drain from her face. But then she turned it all back on me. You're insane, Ryan. Why the hell are you snooping through my phone? You're obsessed. You're goddamn right I'm obsessed. I yelled back. You're sleeping with Tyler, aren't you? Just admit it. But she wouldn't. She dug in deeper, flipping everything around, making me feel like I was the villain for invading her privacy. And the worst part? For a moment, I almost believed her. Meanwhile, Tyler was going through his own crisis. I heard from Evan, his loudmouth friend, that Tyler was having second thoughts about everything. Evan apparently told him to just go all in with Lena. Screw the consequences. They had no idea what was coming. And I was going to make sure they paid for every damn thing they did. You know that moment when you hit rock bottom, and everything inside you just snaps? When you finally stop pretending to be the nice guy and think, screw it, I'm done? That's exactly where I was after that last fight with Lena. I had given her all the chances, all the patience, and she still went behind my back with Tyler. She lied to my face, gaslight me into thinking I was losing it. Fine. If she was done with the marriage, then I was done trying to save it. And if she thought she was going to get away without consequences, she was dead wrong. That's when I started seeing Maya in a different light. She was my neighbor. We'd exchanged the usual pleasantries over the years, but I never really paid her much attention. That changed when I started hitting the gym more, trying to clear my head. And that's where I ran into her often. Maya was fit, confident, and had this energy about her that made everything feel easier, even when my world was burning down. One night, after another heated argument with Lena, I found myself at the gym again. I needed to burn off some anger, to stop thinking about how everything in my life was falling apart. Maya was there too. We started talking, nothing deep, just idle chit-chat. But for the first time in what felt like forever, someone actually listened. She didn't try to fix me. She didn't tell me how I needed to be better or how I should change. She just listened. From that night, we started hanging out more. Coffee after workouts, talking about random things, life, work, whatever. I could tell she was interested in me, and hell, I was starting to feel the same. But I held back. I wasn't ready to throw myself into something else, not while my marriage was still technically intact. But damn, it felt good to be seen for once. To not be just the guy buried in work or the husband getting ignored. But it wasn't until after another fight with Lena that everything shifted. She was out again, probably with Tyler, and I was sitting at home stewing in anger. That's when Aiden called me. Lena's younger sister. She wanted to check in, make sure I was holding up okay. I don't know why she called that night. Maybe it was because Lena wasn't around. Maybe because I was barely holding it together, but I found myself inviting her over. I convinced myself it was innocent, a conversation between friends. But when she stepped through the door, there was this look in her eyes, the same one I used to get from Lena when we were happy. It hit me in that moment, hard. We started talking, and then somehow we ended up on the couch. I didn't stop her. I didn't even hesitate. We kissed, and it wasn't just a kiss. It was urgent, raw. And before I knew it, we were in the bedroom, clothes discarded, and I was fucking her like I needed to get every last bit of frustration out of my system. Aiden was different. She was eager, she wasn't holding back. She was nothing like her sister. It was messy, passionate. It was exactly what I needed. I didn't care about the consequences. In a way, I even enjoyed the twisted irony. Lena's sister, my own betrayal. It felt like a release, an escape from the suffocating life I had been living. The next morning, Aiden was out of the house early, like nothing had happened. She kissed me on the cheek, like it was nothing. And you know what? I didn't feel guilty. I felt free, for the first time in a long time. It was like the weight had lifted off my chest. For once, I had the power. For once, I wasn't the one being lied to. I played it cool, though. A few nights later, I met up with Tyler for drinks. The idiot had no clue. He was talking about how he and Lena were connecting on a deeper level, and I just smiled and nodded. But inside, all I could think was, how's that connection going, buddy? Because I knew exactly what I had just done, and it wasn't even close to being done yet. That's when Isla came into the picture. I met her at one of those bullshit social gatherings where everyone pretends to be friendly. She was Tyler's wife, and she was way too good for him. She had this effortless beauty about her, something that made me take notice. She'd catch my eye from across the room, linger a bit too long, and I couldn't help but feel like she was curious. I was drunk, pissed off, and desperate for a distraction. So when she started talking to me, I leaned into it. We slipped away from the party, found an empty room. There was no hesitation. We kissed, clothes coming off like we were in a race. It was messy, fast, both of us just needing to escape. I don't even remember much after that. Just her hands, her nails digging into my back, her breath heavy against my neck. I fucked up, though. I left my phone at her place. The next day, Tyler found it. Apparently, he saw a message from Aiden pop up while he was trying to figure out whose phone it was. That's when everything started to unravel. Tyler didn't confront me right away, though. Instead, he started acting strange, distant. Lena, on the other hand, was still wrapped up in her little fantasy with Tyler, completely oblivious. But our friends, they started noticing. Hannah, that nosy psychotherapist friend of ours, kept trying to get me to talk. Is everything okay, Ryan? You seem different. Yeah, no shit, I was different. I was at war, trying to ruin my wife's life without getting caught myself. But things were starting to crumble. Lena finally caught a break when a message from Aiden got forwarded to her by mistake. She stormed into the living room, shoving her phone in my face. "What the hell is this?" she screamed. I just shrugged. "Don't know. Ask your sister." It stopped her for a second, but then she came at me, accusing me of being the one ruining everything. I laughed. "Please, Lena, don't act like you're some saint. I know all about you and Tyler." Her face went from white to red to white again. She tried to deny it, but there was no point. We were both tangled in this mess, caught in a web we couldn't untangle. But I wasn't done. If Lena thought she could just walk away from everything without facing consequences, she was wrong. I still had one card left to play, and when I laid it down, she wouldn't see it coming. You ever reach that point where you just stop caring? Like nothing matters anymore because everything's already gone to hell? That's where I was when Lena found that text from Aiden on my phone. I had gotten sloppy, sure. But by that point, I honestly couldn't have cared less. I was exhausted from work, from the constant circus that was my marriage, from juggling the mess I had created with my affairs. I guess I had gotten too comfortable. I came home late one night, mentally drained from the endless back and forth of trying to keep everything from collapsing. And that's when I realized I had forgotten something. A stupid oversight, really. I had left the message Aiden sent me from our last rendezvous. Something casual, something dumb. "Last night was wild. We should do it again sometime." Lena was waiting for me when I walked in. Her eyes were red, her hands trembling as she shoved my phone into my face. "What the hell is this, Ryan? You've been fucking my sister." I didn't even flinch. I was past caring about the facade. "Yeah," I said flatly, my voice cold. Maybe I got tired of waiting for you to come home after your late-night fuckfests with Tyler. And that's when the screaming started. She went off on me, accusing me of every goddamn thing under the sun, calling me every name she could think of. But this time, I wasn't backing down. This time, I threw every dirty little secret back at her, watching her face twist in shock, in fury, as I unloaded on her. You want to talk about betrayal, Lena? I asked, stepping closer, not backing down for a second. How about the fact that you've been fucking my best friend behind my back for months? Don't act like you're innocent in all this. Her jaw dropped, her eyes widening as the truth hit her. For a second, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. But that quickly passed. She came back at me, denying it, accusing me of being paranoid, of pushing her into Tyler's arms. The moment she said that, I lost it. I yelled so loud, I thought the neighbors might call the cops. And when she stormed out, slamming the door behind her with enough force to rattle the windows, I didn't chase after her. Let her go to Tyler. I was done trying to fix this. A couple of days later, we ended up at one of Mark's parties. He's one of those clueless friends who insists on bringing people together even when it's clear we shouldn't be in the same room. Lena was already there, flashing that fake smile, pretending everything was fine. I came in later, and as soon as I walked through the door, I felt it. The tension between us was palpable. It hung in the air, thick enough to choke on. We kept our distance, not speaking a word to each other. But it was obvious our friends weren't oblivious. Rachel, one of Lena's coworkers, kept hovering around her, asking if she was okay. I saw it in Lena's eyes. She was cracking, barely holding it together. Meanwhile, I was nursing a drink, trying not to punch a hole in the wall every time I caught Tyler's smug face across the room. Then Luke, Tyler's younger cousin, pulled me aside. He and I had been talking more recently, mostly because he seemed to be the only one who noticed the storm brewing around me. You all right, man? He asked, handing me another beer. I shrugged. What's the point? She's been fucking Tyler behind my back. I'm just waiting for the right moment to burn it all down. Luke hesitated like he wanted to say something, but finally just sighed. Listen, Ryan, I've seen the way Tyler looks at her. I didn't want to believe it, but maybe it's time you confront him. Get it all out in the open. He was right. I knew it. But I was still holding on to that small, pathetic hope that I could catch them red-handed, that I could throw all their lies in their faces and watch them crumble. But what I didn't know was that Lena and Tyler were still sneaking around, getting off on the fact that they hadn't been caught yet. I heard from Evan, that loudmouth idiot who called himself Tyler's friend, that they were still meeting up, sneaking into hotels late at night like some twisted, pathetic affair. What pissed me off even more was hearing Lena talk about how Tyler made her feel alive. The same goddamn thing she used to say to me. Meanwhile, I was playing my own game. I had Luke confront Tyler, drop a little warning on him. He caught up with Tyler at the gym, casually mentioning Lena, trying to see if he'd slip. Apparently, Tyler turned ghost white, stammering out some bullshit excuse. That's when Luke told him, Ryan's not stupid, man. He knows. You better come clean before it all blows up. But Tyler didn't listen. He kept sneaking around, thinking he was getting away with it. So, I decided to take matters into my own hands. One night, I caught up with him in a parking lot after hearing from Luke that he was planning another one of his sneaky meetups with Lena. I confronted him, and the look on his face was priceless. He tried to deny it at first, but when I got in his face, he cracked. Ryan, listen, he stammered, backing away as I stepped forward. It's not what you think. I didn't mean for it to happen. Bullshit. I spat, cutting him off. You knew exactly what you were doing. You've been fucking my wife behind my back, and now you're trying to play the victim. He tried to apologize, to make excuses about how Lena was unhappy, how he was just comforting her. But I wasn't buying it. The rage that had been building inside me for months finally exploded. My fist connected with his jaw before I even realized what I was doing. We ended up on the ground, fists flying, both of us too far gone to stop. It wasn't until a couple of bystanders pulled us apart that I realized my knuckles were covered in blood, and Tyler's face was a swollen mess. As they dragged me away, all I could think was, this isn't over. Because it wasn't. I was going to make sure they both paid for what they did. Lena, Tyler, all of them. If they thought they could destroy my life and walk away unscathed, they had another thing coming. But the worst part? Even after everything that had happened, I knew this was only the beginning. The secrets were out, but the fallout? That was going to be brutal. You ever get that feeling when everything around you is falling apart and all you can do is watch it happen? That's where I was after the brawl with Tyler. My knuckles were bruised, my body ached, but the worst part? The worst part was knowing nothing was going to get better. It was only going to get worse. I came home that night, still high on adrenaline, half expecting Lena to be gone. But no, she was sitting there on the couch, staring at me with this look that was a mix of rage and desperation. As soon as I walked in, she exploded, yelling about how I had humiliated her, how I was turning into the monster she always feared. "Are you fucking serious, Lena?" I shouted, slamming the door behind me. "I'm the monster? You've been screwing my best friend for months, and now you want to play the victim." She threw up her hands, tears streaming down her face, but I was too far gone to care anymore. "I only did it because you pushed me away, Ryan," she sobbed. "You were always at work. You never had time for me. I was lonely, damn it. Lonely?" I let out a bitter laugh. "So that's your excuse? You were lonely, so you fucked Tyler? That's how you solve problems?" By jumping into bed with the one person I thought I could trust. She tried to spin her actions, tried to justify them, but all I heard were excuses. Every word that came out of her mouth felt like another knife twisting deeper. I didn't want to listen anymore. Couldn't. Finally, I just turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, crying, like somehow her tears would change everything. But I was done. I wasn't playing her game anymore. Meanwhile, Lena was turning to her childhood friend, Olivia, for comfort. I found out later that she'd met up with Olivia at some cafe, pouring out her heart like she was the victim in all of this. Olivia, bless her, didn't hold back. She was supportive, but she wasn't blind to what Lena had done. "Lena, I get that you were unhappy," Olivia told her, according to what I heard later. "But cheating? With Ryan's best friend? Do you even understand the damage you've done?" Of course, Lena played the victim, talking about how unfulfilled she was, how I couldn't give her what she needed. Olivia didn't buy it. She basically told Lena she was being selfish and that if she was so unhappy, she should have just divorced me instead of dragging me through the mud. But Lena, as always, wanted it all. She wanted the marriage, the affair, the excitement, as though none of it could be exclusive of the other. It was like she couldn't let go of anything, even if it meant destroying everything in the process. As for me, I couldn't focus on a damn thing. Work was slipping through my fingers, deadlines piling up like bullets, and I couldn't even find the energy to care. That's when Mark, my boss, called me into his office. "Ryan, I don't know what's going on with you, but you've got to pull it together," he said, his eyes full of pity. "I need you at your best, but you're distracted. Fix whatever's going on at home, or it's going to start affecting your job." Great. As if things weren't already bad enough. The weight of my personal life crashing down, and now I had the looming threat of my job slipping away, too. But the thing was, no matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't focus. Every time I sat down at my desk, all I could think about was Lena and Tyler. Them. Sneaking around behind my back while I was too blind to see it. Meanwhile, Tyler was spiraling too. After our fight, he started avoiding everyone, even Lena. The guilt was eating him alive. So much so that he decided to meet up with her one last time to end things. He told her they couldn't keep going, that it was too much. But Lena, of course, wasn't having it. "I need you, Tyler," she begged, probably trying to pull the same manipulative shit she had on me. But this time, it didn't work. He walked away, leaving her alone and desperate, her world spinning out of control. But Lena wasn't the type to give up that easily. She reached out again, begged him for one last night together. And like a damn fool, he agreed. They met up at some shitty hotel, thinking they could get away with it. I don't know what exactly happened that night, but when Tyler came out, he looked more broken than I'd ever seen him. He finally told Lena they had to stop, that they couldn't keep destroying people's lives for their own selfish needs. I came home after another shitty day at work, ready to collapse into bed. And there she was, Lena, standing in the living room, a half-packed suitcase beside her. "What the hell are you doing?" I asked, my voice flat, drained of all the rage I used to feel. She turned to face me, her eyes red. For the first time, I saw real pain in them. "I can't do this anymore, Ryan," she whispered. "I've been lying to myself. I'm not happy, you're not happy. This marriage is over." I laughed bitterly. "Yeah, no shit. It's over. You killed it the moment you spread your legs for Tyler." That hit her hard. She flinched like I'd slapped her. But I didn't care. She finally admitted everything. The affair, the lies, the secrets. I could see she was hoping for closure, maybe even some kind of forgiveness, but all I felt was emptiness. "Get out," I said, my voice cold. "Just pack your shit and leave." The next day, I went straight to the lawyer. No waiting for her to move out. No drawn-out drama. I signed the divorce papers, and the process of tearing her out of my life began. She tried to talk to me, tried to convince me to work through it, but I wasn't listening. There was nothing left to salvage. Our friends, of course, took sides. Hannah, our self-righteous therapist friend, kept pushing for reconciliation. "Maybe you should try counseling, talk things through," she suggested, like she had any idea what we'd been through. But it was too late. The damage was done, and there was no fixing it. Lena had wrecked everything beyond repair, and I wasn't about to let her drag me any further down. The divorce was brutal, messy, and filled with bitterness and accusations from both sides. But in the end, it was done. Lena, the woman I once loved, was nothing more than a painful memory. And me? I was left standing in the rubble of a life I didn't even recognize, trying to figure out how to move on. But I wasn't broken. No, I was free. And I'd be damned if I let her betrayal keep me down. The divorce was over. The legal crap was done. And just like that, Lena was out of my life. I won't lie. There were days when it felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me, like my whole world had collapsed. But maybe it needed to. After everything that went down, I was standing in the ruins of a life I didn't recognize. But at least it was mine again. Lena moved out, and that was the last I saw of her for a while. I heard through the grapevine that she got herself a small apartment downtown, just big enough for her to start fresh. I didn't care what she was up to, but I'd be lying if I didn't wonder if she was struggling or if she'd moved on without a second thought. Turns out, Lena wasn't struggling as much as I'd imagined. Apparently, she'd met some guy named Jake at an art exhibit. I found out from a mutual friend, the kind who just can't resist passing along gossip. They said Jake was this charming, artsy guy. The complete opposite of me, of course. Good for her, I thought. Let her have her fling with the artsy guy. Maybe that was what she needed all along to fill the hole in her life. But as for me, I wasn't looking to jump into anything. Not yet. I was still pissed, still reeling from everything that had happened. I was trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do now that Lena was out of the picture. Work became my escape. I buried myself in new projects, pulling late nights at the office. Anything to keep my mind off the mess I couldn't seem to untangle. Then Nina came into the picture. She was a new hire, young, sharp, and full of energy. She was the kind of person who actually seemed to enjoy her job, a rare trait in my line of work. At first, we kept things casual, grabbing coffee, chatting about projects. But there was something different about her. She listened, really listened, like she actually cared. One night, after a particularly grueling day, I found myself alone in the break room, trying to clear my head. That's when Nina found me. "Hey, Ryan," she said with that bright, ever-present smile. "You look like you could use a drink. How about we grab one after work?" I hesitated for a moment, but what did I have to lose? So, we ended up at this dive bar a few blocks away from the office, and for the first time in months, I actually found myself enjoying someone's company. Nina was easy to talk to. No drama, no hidden motives, just a genuine person. And before I knew it, she became the one I turned to when I needed to vent or just forget about my life for a while. Meanwhile, Lena was still on her self-discovery journey. She was spending more time with Jake, going to art classes, trying to reinvent herself as some free-spirited designer. I saw it all unfold on social media, her happy photos with captions about new beginnings and finding herself. Part of me wanted to call bullshit on it, but another part of me didn't care anymore. She was doing her thing and I was done trying to keep tabs on her. But then one day, completely out of the blue, Lena ran into Tyler. They bumped into each other at a cafe downtown. I wasn't there, obviously, but I heard about it through one of our mutual friends who seemed way too interested in keeping me updated on Lena's life. From what I heard, it was awkward as hell. Lena confronted Tyler, finally getting that closure she'd been craving. They talked about everything, the damage they'd done, to me, to themselves, to their friendship. Lena told him she couldn't believe things had gotten so out of hand. Tyler, of course, tried to apologize, but it was too late. The damage had been done, and they both left looking like they'd been hit by a truck. As for me, things with Nina were different. I wouldn't call it a relationship yet, not exactly, but it was something. She was there for me in ways Lena had never been. We spent more time together, not just at work, but outside of it too. She'd come over, we'd cook dinner together, watch stupid movies, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could finally breathe again. One night, after hours of talking about everything and nothing, she looked at me with those big, knowing eyes and said, "You've been through a lot, Ryan, but you're not your mistakes. You're allowed to be happy, you know?" I don't know why, but her words hit me like a ton of bricks. Maybe it was because, for so long, I had blamed myself for everything, for driving Lena away, for not being enough. But with Nina, it was different. She made me feel like I still had a shot at something better, something more than the mess my life had become. Lena, on the other hand, seemed to be doing okay with Jake. They were inseparable, and I started hearing less and less about her from our old circle of friends. Good for her, I thought. If she'd found someone who could make her happy, more power to her. But as for me, I was done trying to fix anyone else. It was time to focus on myself. In the end, we both moved on in our own ways. Lena and I finally sat down to talk one last time. No shouting, no accusations. Just two people who had once loved each other trying to understand how things went so wrong. "I'm sorry," she said, tears in her eyes. "I never meant to hurt you." "I'm sorry too," I replied, though honestly, I wasn't sure if I meant it. Maybe I was just tired of holding on to all that anger. We shook hands, exchanged a few awkward goodbyes, and that was it. The last chapter of our messy story finally closed. Now it's just me and Nina. We're taking it slow, no labels, no pressure. But for the first time in a long time, I actually feel hopeful. I've started setting new goals at work, taking on projects I actually care about. Hell, I even signed up for a gym membership. Things are changing slowly but surely. Lena's out there with Jake, trying to rebuild her life. Good for her. I hope she finds whatever it was she was looking for. But as for me, I'm done looking back. It's time to move forward. Because sometimes, the only way to start over is to burn everything down and build something new from the ashes.